welcome to the Freeman perspective. Tonight we're going to discuss a little thing that I like to call the Celestine Wars. I'd like to compare and contrast some ideas with you. We are looking at some interesting times ahead, and our very state of mind and the way that we perceive things is going to be very critical to things in our future. I find these two movies very intriguing, or their books as well. You'll find that at certain times within our understanding in our future and in our now, that these Hollywood movies will make a serious impact on our lives. And if you're questioning that at all, whether or not Hollywood really has an influence on how we see the world and what we think of as reality, I'll have you know that I lived in Florida when Jaws came out. And I'll tell you, there was nobody at the beach when Jaws came out. It was the worst thing for the Floridian tourist trade, because everyone was very concerned about a 40-foot shark coming up to eat them. So these movies do have an impact, and I find that at times there's certain things that come up into the consciousness of humanity that really make an impact, and certainly Star Wars was one of those. Star Wars came out when I was 10 years old, and I actually saw it 14 times in the theater when I was a kid. I loved it. I loved the movie. I loved the idea of the Jedi. I loved everything about Star Wars. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. I wanted to learn the ways of the Jedi, and I even use this term today to express some of the miraculous things that I do using my Jedi powers. But as I've got deeper and deeper into the conspiracy theory and understanding just exactly what really is going on planet Earth, I had to start to review some of my ideas that I had acquired. And so I decided that an understanding, a comparison and contrast of the Celestine prophecies with Star Wars was in order. You see, now Star Wars, the Jedi Order is actually a very elitist group, and it's due to their bloodline. You'll find, of course, Luke Skywalker was the son of Darth Vader. Or maybe we won't. Okay. Sleeping on the controls. Star Wars made a huge impact. I mean, it came out in Time magazine. It was put into our classes with Scholastic. They were giving us Star Wars propaganda in our classrooms. And they really did breed this into us. But now, the thing about Star Wars is that it did make such a huge impact on society that millions and millions of people were standing in lines to see this film. I stood in a line that went all the way around the theater. And this idea of Star Wars that a certain bloodline that has what they call midichlorians in their bloodline gives an excessive or an advanced amount of the Force to certain members of humanity. So it is a very elitist style of brotherhood. Not just anyone can become a Jedi. You've got to have it in your blood to do so. And so, of course, the son of Luke Skywalker, or the father of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, had a very high midichlorian rate and was superior in his Jedi powers. Now, intriguingly, the idea of having these powers, they could be used for good and they could be used for evil, given your choice. And it seems that a lot of the Buddhist ways would follow within the Jedi realms, because, like as Anakin Skywalker began his path down the dark side, his true reason for joining the dark side was love. Now, this is very intriguing because you give these people a power and you train them in this power, and then their emotions tend to step in the way and will lead them either to the light or the dark. But if you notice about Star Wars, it is all about war, and it is all about fighting, and all of these Jedis are protectors of the Republic. And of course, to be protectors, you gotta have an enemy. I found it very intriguing that this latest Star Wars now, they initially had named Return of the Jedi as Revenge of the Jedi was the original title for that movie. But then Lucas decided that revenge wasn't a very good Jedi trait. So they changed the name to Return of the Jedi, and then saved the revenge for later for Revenge of the Sith, which was this last film that just came out. Now the term Jedi actually is an ancient term, and it is one of the terms that we use to describe the gods. They were known as the Titans, the Olympians, the Nephilim, the Netter, the Watchers, and the Jedi. This was a Middle Eastern term for the gods. So here we have an elitist group that has a specified bloodline that allows them to have power over mere mortals, and all connected with the gods, the Jedi. This took me a while to really let this sink into my head because, you know, like I say, I really like Star Wars, and I've seen all the films, and I didn't want to find anything wrong with Star Wars. But as I started to compare and contrast the two concepts between the Celestine prophecies and Star Wars, I started to notice the differences. Now, first of all, of course, the eliteness, and then the power over people. Now, when the Jedi can use their mind, and supposedly they, you know, the Jedi, not the Sith, will use their powers for good. So Obi-Wan Kenobi will send his brain power into another man and tell him he doesn't want to sell drugs. Now, this is a good message, right? But at the same time, he has taken this person's free will, and that's not a very good thing. And I find within this, the current film that just came out, well, it's been a little while now, but Revenge of the Sith, that we actually are being described the very fall of the American Republic. Now, I myself have never really believed in an American Republic because I study Freemasonry, and if you study Freemasonry, you won't believe that we've ever actually elected a president, and you'll find that Freemasonry has been the instigators of most of our major warfare. For example, the French Revolution was spawned of the Freemasons, or more right here at home, the Boston Tea Party that we all know of, and the Sons of Liberty, or Sons of Columbia, throwing the tea into the water to spark a revolutionary war between England and America. This was a Freemason invention, and you'll find that humanity, humans themselves, don't tend to want to kill one another. This is not really our natural way to be, and really we must be conditioned to fight, conditioned to kill. They found in Vietnam and some of the earlier wars, World War II, World War I, or more World War II and more World War I, where the men didn't want to kill these other people, and they would shoot over people's heads and purposely miss and not want to kill. Now, they were out there in the first place because it seemed to strike their sense of honor, and they wanted to stand up for what they felt was right. And so, you know, here the Freemasons have created this concept of freedom and liberty, and so it seemed right and just for these warriors to step forward and fight for that. But the more we look into this picture, the more we find that it's all contrived and there never has been a free country. So mankind themselves aren't typically ones to go out and slaughter their neighbors. This is not our general traits. We must be convinced and conditioned, and so we get lots of propaganda to lead us to feel like we should kill. And 911 was such a propaganda event where, you know, the towers came down, it was blamed on bin Laden, and people wanted to go kill terrorists for George W. You know, that was, I'm going to go join. I mean, I guarantee that the ranks of the military at least doubled, if not quadrupled, because this felt like our moral obligation. This felt like the right thing to do. But as you watch the Freeman perspective more and more, I think you're going to start to determine that these moral obligations are manufactured for their benefit and not ours. So this character bin Laden, who we have, of course, through Alex Jones, been shown to be a CIA asset, is also shown in The Revenge of the Sith, the latest Star Wars movie, whereas he is General Grievous. And if you ever wondered why the android, General Grievous, has a cough, then you can understand that it was a symbol of bin Laden's dialysis, because he was on a dialysis machine. And so we got a kind of a comparison symbolically with bin Laden and General Grievous. Then we have the Senator Palpatine, who eventually becomes the Emperor. And for me, in my book, that's Dick Cheney. And W becomes Count Dooku. So if you look at the story, you're going to find that this emperor has set up this revolution using bin Laden or General Grievous so that they could spark this war and he could rise to power and take over the republic legally. In order to do this, they had to eliminate the good magicians, the good magi, the Jedi. And you will notice that when Emperor Palpatine issues the order to kill all of the Jedi, he says, execute Order 66. Now, he says this 3 times, and each time, now, prior to this, all of the slaughter that had been going on in Star Wars was against clones or robots. Now, we don't tend to have much of an emotional draw towards clones nor robots. They almost trigger the same emotional reaction in our brains. They're not human. And so a lot of the slaughter and the deaths that occur within the Star Wars movies are these robots and clones, and so we don't get this emotional draw towards them. You can laugh at these robots as they're slaughtered by the hundreds. And I often wonder if we are looking forward to a war that includes clones and robots. But then we get to execute Order 66, and this is where the real slaughter begins, as they start to kill off the good magicians and just slaughter them, shoot them in the back. Now, all of the people that are slaughtering the Jedi were accompanying the Jedi in warfare. They had gone with them, they were all clones, and they'd gone with the Jedi, and they were trying to eliminate the terrorists, which of course they called separatists on the movie. And so next thing you know, these cloned warriors start just shooting the Jedi in the back and killing what were at one time their companions. And of course, 66 in Hebrew, and you're going to discover that we're looking at a Hebrew magical order here, and so all of the things that we look at need to be transliterated back into Hebrew. And within Hebrew, the number 6 equals the letter V. And V is going to come up in our talks many, many times. But 6 and 6 put together becomes V, and we get W. Of course, any other country calls it a W, a double V, but in America we've decided to call it a W, even though it doesn't look anything like a U. This W, the 66, is of course, our president. And so the part of Count Dooku in the movie shows him executing Order 66 and slaughtering the Jedi. So that's why I connect him with Count Dooku, W. And the reason I think Dick Cheney is the emperor which I could make a good case to where HW is actually Senator Palpatine, because H in the Hebrew Kabbalistic Tarot is the Emperor card. And so HW, H66, is the Emperor of the fallen angels, because 66, of course, is the number of the fallen angels, the Jedi. Did George Lucas know all of this as he wrote it? I don't know. Certainly in Revenge of the Sith, it appears that he was encoding very specific symbolism. His earlier movie, Star Wars, well, it was based off of your basic hero's tale as put together by Joseph Campbell. And most of our ancient stories of the hero's tale follow this same path line where your hero is put before a challenge, goes into the belly of the whale, and finally ends up with reconciliation with the father. And you'll find this exact storyline played out in Star Wars. So perhaps it struck such a chord with us because of this ancient narrative, that this ancient structure of writing and storytelling, the hero cycle, is well within our genetic structure, and we understand and we relate to it. Or this story has a bit more reality and a bit more validity to it than we actually know, but our genes, our DNA, have a remembrance of it. Because we're going to learn more and more in the future that we do have genetic memory, and that that's exactly what these things are touching upon, is our genetic memory. So now as we move into the 21st century and we have started sending probes into space and we've had men land on the moon, we've started to discover a few things about our solar system that we didn't know back 100 years ago or even less. And we have found that there is actually a Death Star, and whether or not we choose to believe that this was the very thing that George Lucas was talking about, or it just happened to be a massive coincidence, I'm not believing much in coincidences these days. The Death Star was actually sitting out orbiting Saturn, and it is called Iapetus, and it's a moon of Saturn. And the Cassini satellite went out and it started photographing the different moons of Saturn. And these were the first time that we here on Earth got to see them. And one of the pictures returned, and you can find the image on Richard Hoagland's site, and it's also in my documentary. EnterpriseMission.com is Richard Hoagland's site. And you will look at this Death Star, and it looks very much like the Death Star that was in Return of the Jedi. A devastated Death Star. It's already been destroyed, as if it's been out there for millennia. There's a 12-mile high wall around the equator, which actually is in the exact equator and tends to really make us believe that this was a man-made structure, because there's no other way that this perfect wall could go around the equator at the exact center. And it even has this little divot, the massive weaponry that the Death Star has. And this is a moon surrounding Saturn that we only got a picture of 10 years ago. It's been so long, how time flies. So could it be that our ancient story of Atlantis and Lemuria is actually a real story, and that actually the Atlanteans were Martians and the Lemurians were Earthlings, and that the Atlanteans used their ultimate death way, their Death Star, to bring about the devastation of planet Earth so that they could conquer it? Could white man be a Martian, and a Martian race that landed in the Caucasus Mountains and started what we now call civilization? Which, of course, you look at civilization, you find that it's simply a mining colony on this planet. We are to till the land and mine the gold, as the Bible tells us. Could this be a reality? Could this Death Star have been used as Atlantis' ultimate weapon? And then what we find is that the Earth was not completely destroyed, but Mars certainly was, and they had to move here. And then the moon got placed into an orbit around Earth in order to stabilize this wobbling hunk. Now, it certainly has been proven that the moon does not come from Earth. It is made of entirely different material than Earth and has a totally different structure. And the ancient stories of the moon say that it was a green, lush planet, much like the Yavin moon of Star Wars. Well, to stretch this just a little bit further, it turns out that Richard Hoagland has also now made another discovery, and it turns out that the head of C-3PO, the robot of Star Wars, the gold guy that Darth Vader made, has actually shown up on the moon. Believe it or not, go look at the pictures yourself. Go to enterprisemission.com and check out this C-3PO's head on the moon. I think he calls it Data's head in connection with Star Trek. It's curious because all of these stories that we get, and as I said in the beginning, these movies do affect our reality. All of these stories, such as Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Flash Gordon, and on, all show us that we have no hope but to be in constant struggle, constant warfare. The Jedi are fighting the Sith, the lost humans of Battlestar Galactica, which is a Mormon story, by the way, which of course relates back to Freemasonry, and or of course fighting the Cylons, and Buck Rogers was just fighting anyone that happened to come his way. Is this true? Is this really reality, what we've got to look forward to once we finally become a galactic community and join the alien races and all of the planets that surround us? Are we simply looking for more war? Is it simply that all of our technology should be developed towards warfare so that we can go out and strike these entities? When Ronald Reagan stands before us and says, wouldn't it be great if we were attacked by an extraterrestrial force so that we could all unite as humanity and go out and strike down these villainous foes that are orbiting our planet or heading into our solar system? I don't think so. Now, personally, I think that this is a mindset that is continually being set into our heads, and that technology does not need to be used for warfare. It does not need to be our structure of, we do not need to orchestrate all of our engineering towards warfare. I also don't believe that the computer was developed in somebody's garage. That just seems ridiculous to me, being that it was mostly crafted by the NSA. So I don't believe in this mythos of the American creator and that if you come up with the best design, you rise to the top. That just doesn't seem to be the case. The more we look into the picture of these secret societies, the more we find that there was an ancient power structure in the past, and that this technology has been passed down through the ages and is in the hands of, well, the Chinese now, but America prior to that. So within the Star Wars realms, you've got the idea of the Dark Empire, and of course the hero, Luke Skywalker, ends up turning towards the dark side. And this is the potential within an idea like this, where certain bloodlines, certain elite groups get magical powers and are able to use them against the free will of common man, such as you and I. That is the Star Wars mythos. Now, is this what reality is, or is this what Hollywood wants us to continue to think? Warfare, strife, good magicians, dark magicians. Certainly I've been questioning that a lot because I have met a lot of very good Masons, and obviously we tend to worship a number of our Masons in the past, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the list goes on and on, Steve Austin for one, and Voltaire and Shakespeare, and all the list of Freemasons that we now hold in high regard. do we live in a world where we are dealing with this good and evil, and the true path is to be able to move within these secret societies and attain these powers to be able to control the free will of others, either for good or for bad? I don't like that idea personally. So we're hoping that the truth of the matter comes that the Empire does strike out. And the truth of the matter is that it has to. And honestly, I don't know why they are trying to attain such a goal as this police state and these control mechanisms. I mean, it's obvious that the chip is coming. It's obvious that we are being set up with other structures with electromagnetic frequencies and these chemtrails. Now, these two topics are going to be very big this month for the Freeman perspective. We're going to get deep into magic next week with Isaac Ponowitz, and then we're just going to start digging into HAARP and chemtrails like it's nobody's business. So this whole month is going to be devoted to weather wars and understanding these electromagnetic frequencies that are being used against us. Now, electromagnetic frequencies seem to be a lot to do with magic, and we're going to get deep into that next week. So, actually today at Brave New Books, they showed Nick Begich's Holes of Heaven, and it's a very good documentary on HAARP. And I gotta say, Brave New Books is doing an awesome job for opening minds and opening people's eyes to new concepts and helping us work our way into this new paradigm that we're going to have to shift into. And that's where we get to the Celestine prophecies. But first, I would like to do my little bit of honor to Brave New Books.
Brave New Books! Ha ha ha! Boom! Brave New Books!
I tell you folks, over in 1904 Guadalupe is a very interesting place. It's Brave New Books. That's where your journey on the rabbit hole begins. In the fight against the New World Order, in the fight for humanity, in the fight against the globalists and the dehumanizers. Brave New Books.
BraveNewBookstore.com.
We want to thank Brave New Books. They have been so wonderful.
Well, Steve has been awesome to me. I'm so glad I met that guy. And Harlan as well. They're both wonderful people down there at the bookstore. Well, what I would like to address is this whole idea of fighting the New World Order and fighting for humanity, and it puts us back into that dualistic paradigm where we're dealing with good Jedi and bad Sith. And I disagree with this mentality, this duality that we have been placed into, because we're moving into a new shift now. We're moving into a new paradigm. And this whole idea of wanting to become a Jedi so that we can go fight the New World Order is not one that I'm attracted to. Personally, I'm not really into fighting, and I don't look forward to killing anything. So I am opposed to this mindset, the fighting of the New World Order, to get out your guns and get out your weapons of mass destruction to go and take down the New World Order. Doesn't work out too well in Star Wars either, I'll tell you that. So that brings us to the Celestine prophecies, the insights. Now that word is so important, insight, because that's truly what we're talking about here. Because honestly, and I know this to be true, that if we work on our insight, our inward vision, and this propels out into our outward vision, And if we're all focused on fighting the New World Order and coming up with new ways of destroying these guys, well, that's what we're going to get, destruction. So we need to reorganize our thoughts. Now, I'll tell you, the Celestine vision did not make the huge splash that Star Wars did. And of course, they didn't put it into scholastics and get it into our classrooms either. The insights themselves, now I'm asking you now, how many of you are feeling anxious and restless at this time? How many of you feel like you don't get the sleep that you need, that even though you've slept 10 hours or more or less, you still don't wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go? How many of you feel that when you step out into your day, it's actually a warfare and not a true bliss? Most of you, I would think, because certainly this is the way I feel, and I've been trained in the ways of the Celestine prophecies and have had so much bliss and so much wonderful events occur in my life, but yet still my mindset is kind of has been conformed into this dualistic reality. So, you know, it's something that we all need to work into our insights. And what we'll discover is that we are moving into a new view of reality, a new perspective, if you will. Let me just turn to James here and let him lay out a little bit. Because he says we are in the midst of an accelerating transformation on how we see our world. Okay, I've been taking you through the longer now. We started with ancient astronauts over the last 2 weeks, and we're bringing that concept into civilization and how we view the world today. And I'm hoping to show that civilization is actually an alien structure and not human at all. Human civilization functions much differently. So the Celestine prophecies will take you from the Middle Ages on up in the longer now, and looking at people that believed God was in control of everything. And so each thing was either God or Satan, depending on whether it was good or bad for you. And they had a firm belief in this. But of course, man stepped in the way, and we dealt with priests and cardinals and popes. And people started to lose faith in religion, and therefore lose faith in their God. Now, personally, I don't think religion and God have anything to do with one another. But we lost faith in these men that were supposed to be our intermediaries between us and God, and so therefore we lost faith in God, and we began the scientific revolution, and we started to discover that we could manipulate planet Earth, and we got lost in this preoccupation. We got lost in our manipulation of reality, that we began to lose all sense of the mystery of life and why we're actually here. So we see that the purpose of life is spiritual growth through loving action. And it's not just survival in the material world. The only way we can truly advance individually and collectively is through the opening to this full dimension of who we are. And that you use following intuitive guidance and helping others rather than working to advance your own agenda. And this is also very critical because these synchronicities do come as you are sharing your energy with another. And what you'll find within this concept of the Celestine prophecies is this power struggle that we're dealing with. And we find that it's all right within us. And everyone has a different control drama that we developed as a child to deal with our parents' control drama. And so I myself am one of the aloof characters, and I tend to go into my shell whenever I'm trying to suck somebody's energy, because that's what this is all about. And what is happening is that these characters, now I'm going to call them Atlanteans, so hopefully you know what I mean. I'm speaking of the Brotherhood, or these Nephilim, the Jedi, the Atlanteans, have come to planet Earth and started setting up geomantic centers. Now this is something that we kind of got into with the ancient astronaut theory, because what you'll find is the pyramids in Giza, the pyramids in South and Central America, the pyramids in China are all set up to manipulate the vibration of planet Earth. Now we have the death of all the old growth as we watch as they destroy the old growth to put up Walmarts and whatnot. And the death of the old growth is also a form of geomancy, because what we find is that this power struggle between humans is developed due to our lack of energy reception from other beautiful things. So the beauty is being destroyed, and I fear that someday Earth may look like Coruscant in the Star Wars mythos, where there are no plants, only buildings and high-rises, and I'm hoping this does not become the case. I'm hoping that all of us will work into this insight and start to become a paradigm shift and start to stop these monsters from destroying our lovely planet. So all of this is a form of geomancy being done by the Lords of the Sith and the Atlanteans to bring about conflict between us. And so as we lose touch with this natural frequency, we start to have to take it from one another. And this is where the control dramas come into play. And you're going to find this in many relationships. In many of the, what is going on? In many of the relationships that are going on now, which I tend to call relationships of convenience, because people are both male and female searching for this bond, for this energy to be filled. We've got this hole in us, and so far the only way we know how to take it is by taking it from another. And so we put forth control dramas, be it that you're an interrogator or an intimidator or aloof or a poor me. These are all states that we will go into that will draw others' energies or attention to us. And this will increase as things get worse. And we're going to want to fight amongst each other. And this is what they're hoping to do with their geomancy and with the destruction of the old growth and the lack of this energy that we are being not fulfilled with. And so we ourselves need to turn into ourselves and realize that we are doing this and we do it to one another. And as we start to want to suck somebody else's energy, psychic vampirism, which we all do in different levels, we got to reverse that. We got to instead focus our inside eye onto love and giving and helping others instead of ourselves. And when we do this, we uplift the other person with our very energy that we can transmit, and then they don't need to go sucking energy off of others. And this is the only thing that's going to work until we regain a nice natural structure on planet Earth, which will happen, because as I was saying, I don't understand why these guys want to set up this New World Order, because it's destined to fail. I mean, it's got entropy. There's no way for a power structure such as that to continue. But of course, we have seen where they would just wipe us all out in one point and then rebuild us again. But there's, you know, I don't understand their point and what they're trying to achieve. But so within the Celestine prophecies, we start to learn that there is not a war going on out there. There's a war going on in here. And it is a war for this energy that we need. So a big portion of what, to be able to accept this, to be able to accept your placement here on Earth at this time and believe that you're not a victim, you've got to understand that you chose to be here. Because you did, in my opinion. Your soul is eternal. And this is merely a ride at Disney World. You've come down to planet Earth and incarnated into this third-dimensional body so that you could experience. And so I personally suggest, you know, getting the most out of this. You paid for the ticket, now enjoy it. So we are definitely on this ride, and it is our spiritual body taking an emotional or third-dimensional trip. So first step in acceptance is realizing that you wanted to do this. You wanted to come here. You wanted to face W. You wanted to face this whole scenario. And so enjoy it. Enjoy it is key. It's critical. Play with it and have fun with this. That is a hard one to accept because we want to stay within the victim mentality, and it's a much easier place to be to blame it all on everyone else. You know, oh my God, you know, they're all out to get us. But as you start to realize this and you start to play with this and you start to get into a mindset where there are no more coincidences and that synchronicities are going to propel you forward to your soul's intent because you had a purpose to come down and fulfill here on planet Earth, and your soul intention will be fulfilled if you allow it. And what happens a lot of times is we get caught in a treadmill, we get caught in this idea, and we've got all this anxiety and this restlessness that doesn't seem to get fulfilled by our day-to-day life, and we get caught in a cycle and we don't seem to step out of it. And we move into our own little shells and we don't want to deal with the rest of the world. And so we go to our job, we go get in our box, go to our box, get back to the box to watch the box, right? Yeah, you got to step out of this. So the best way to do that is at least, let's say 3 times a week, sense someone that you should speak with, someone you don't know, a complete stranger, and go over there and tell them that you had an intuition that you needed to speak with them. Because now the Celestine prophecies did make a huge impact on our genetic memory. When this book came out, the Celestine prophecies, it really, it made such an impact, it was astounding. I could ask anyone, anywhere, just random people on the street, hey, what insight are you on? And typically they would tell me, oh, well, I'm kind of stuck on the 3rd insight. And, well, you know, because the 3rd insight requires a little bit of imagination. It's seeing auras or seeing energy fields around plants and other people. And it is this very aura, this very energy that we are needing to fulfill our souls so that we feel happy and blissful on planet Earth. And many people aren't ready to release their rationalism, to step out into the world of Baron Munchausen and actually believe the play world to be real. But the more of us, the more and more of us that start to accept this as reality, the more that this becomes reality. And we don't need to step up and fight the New World Order. We don't need to draw arms. What we need to do is release our souls to be free, to enjoy life on planet Earth. And so you got to take these first steps. It's not something that will be, well, it is going to continue to come into your world because you actually get what you expect. And whether you know it or not, you're getting what you expect. And so if you don't like what you're getting, start expecting something better. And I've learned this time and time again. When I was at the Gem and Mineral Show in Tucson, and we were getting the heavy chemtrails, which of course I expected. I'm working on that. James Redfield was giving a lecture there at Tucson, and I was like, oh, you know, it's destined for me to meet James Redfield. Of course, I mean, I'm living the prophecies. I've been living them before I read the book. I just now advanced the book to you as a guidebook because it described what I couldn't say. Now I've got the words. And I went to try and meet James Redfield, but I got caught up in a control drama, in a power struggle with the person I was with, and I wanted to win, you know. I wanted her energy, and she ended up getting mine. And I missed the whole lecture, and I was like, man, I can't believe I missed James Redfield. So I come back to Austin, and next thing I know, it's announced James Redfield's going to be in Austin, and I'm like, yeah, I knew it. And that's the way these things go. So sure enough, not only did I get to go meet James Redfield, but my friend is the manager, and he got me tickets, and everything was laid out with the red carpet for me, and I did get to meet James, and he autographed my book for me, and I was all excited about it, and I'm still trying to convince him to get on the show, but he's a hard man to get in touch with. So now this TV show is another prime example of how you can put forward an intention and you never know what it's going to bring forth, because certainly I didn't intend to be on television. My whole goal was to meet Alex Jones. When I got to Austin, I was only planning on staying here for the weekend, and then I was listening to the radio and I heard that Alex Jones was an Austinite. I didn't know that. I had no idea. I'd of course been listening to Alex Jones for a number of years. Was still kind of against the whole fight the New World Order idea, but I feel that the important information he's giving you is so critical to understanding. Now I'm trying to come to you and say, okay, now you've got the understanding, let go. Letting go is the only possible solution I can find. But so, I wanted to meet Alex Jones, and so I went driving around trying to find where his studio was and all this, and I wasn't having any luck with that, and I stumbled into a nice man, and I've given you guys this story before, where all of a sudden I ended up on television. When I was coming in here to start my first TV show, lo and behold, there's Alex Jones, and I was like, oh, so this is what I needed to do to meet you. So I set forth an intention to meet Alex Jones and ended up on television, now expressing to you my views on the world. And I find this very exciting, and I play with it all the time. And like I was saying, that if you're not getting what you expect something bigger, expect something better. Because when I was at the Gem and Mineral Show, I was getting everything I wanted, everything I thought of. I was like, wow, I'd really like to have a labradorite stone. And next thing I knew, somebody would come and hand me a labradorite stone. And this went on, and I kept getting things that I wanted. And I'm like, wow, well, wait a minute. These are all little trinkets. What am I thinking? I want more than this. I need to expect more. And so I started to begin that mindset. And I don't know if you guys have seen The Secret. The movie that has come out, but it's kind of along those lines, you know, or very much along those lines, that now I've started to train my brain that I can have whatever I want, that there is health, wealth, and abundance here, and that this whole idea of limits to growth put forth to us by the Club of Rome and the UN, the idea that there's not enough space and surplus for humans to exist is all poppycock. There is plenty of abundance on planet Earth. And the truth of the matter is that civilization is a clot within this system that is stopping us from having full abundance. And it's not any way helping humanity whatsoever. Capitalism, communism, socialism, idealism, all this stuff. Well, maybe idealism will help. But are not helping us one bit. These are constructs of the magicians, and what we're going to start to find now in this new paradigm is that the universe is actually working towards our benefit, and that human life on planet Earth can totally be transformed by the mere change of thought. And what we need to do is recognize this new thought. We need to eliminate these concepts that the magicians are putting before us and start to envision a world that is abundant. And we need to eliminate these concepts of limitation that set us into this structure that keeps us cyclical. Because now I've started to believe, well, I can have whatever I want. And I moved into a house, and I spend money freely, and it just keeps coming. The more I spend, the more it keeps coming. And I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. And so, you know, I've yet to get extravagant. I'm still a little bit of on the tapered side. I tend to keep it, you know, well, I can spend $20 today, and then, you know, and then more comes, and I'm like, wow, you know, maybe I can just spend whatever I like. And it's that release of fear. Like, how am I going to pay rent? Okay, now, you know, I'm documenting on this show now. We're going on 7 to 8 years without a job. Just to say that you can form a structure that is simply formed of your own insight, your own true beauty, your soul's fulfillment. And so you eliminate this concept of fear of how am I going to pay my bills, and instead you think to yourself, oh, I have money. I have it. It's all good. I have no idea. You know, I have no idea where the money's going to come from, but I just tell myself, it's all fine. I've got it. And it is. And as long as I continue to believe that, as long as I don't self-defeat myself, if I don't start inserting thoughts into my head like, oh, when is this going to fall apart? Oh, when, you know, it's, you can continue this and it'll grow and it'll continue to grow. And this is the big separation between the concept of the Sith Lords or the Jedi and the ideas within the Celestine prophecies. The Sith Lords believe in manipulation. You must train yourself to do this. And then, you know, only if you're of a pure elitist bloodline do you actually get the full power to control reality. And that it's all a power struggle, it's all duality, it's all of a system of control, either the good control or the bad control. But within the Celestine prophecy structure, what we've got is a dynamic universe that's willing to give us everything we need and everything we want to our heart's desire, as long as we are loving and giving. And that's, you know, it's one key structure inside of it, that it has to be loving and giving. Certainly you can take another's power, and, you know, that's the concept within Star Wars. But if you start just freely giving your energy and your love to others, it will fill you, and you will always have what you need and even what you want. And this is where I see the big paradigm shift occurring, is between these two concepts, where we don't need to fight the New World Order, we simply need to dream a new dream. And the universe is abundant and fulfilling, and it will fulfill you. And you don't necessarily need to quit your job, which is, of course, one of my mantras, because within your job you're going to have these synchronicities, and within anything that's right before you. And if you miss it, it'll come again, you know, just like James Redfield and him showing up in Austin to meet me instead of being able to meet him in Tucson. So these things will continue to present themselves to you, and all you need to do is use your loving energy to fulfill those things. Another example, I just completed Alex Jones's VHS to DVD. I was asked by Steve from Brave New Bookstore if I could do some artwork for him, and I was like, absolutely, you know, I love to do artwork. I had no idea of what I'd be doing, and I had no thoughts of how much money I was going to receive from this, and I never did initially ask for any money. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to make the art. I thought this would be great, and I'd be helping Steve, and it would be awesome. And next thing I know, I get all the artwork in my email, and it's all Alex Jones stuff, and I'm like, whoa, you know, I'm working on Alex Jones' stuff. So I ended up recreating 7 of his VHS to DVDs, so we're going to have a big release party in November or maybe early December. I'm pretty excited about this. I redid all the art for all of these videos, and now they want to hire me to do more artwork. They really liked what I did, so, you know, they're again just taking the step that was put before me. Hey, do you want to do some artwork? Well, actually, I volunteered. You know, I overheard Steve saying he needed artwork done, and I said, hey, sign me up. And so now I'm moved on to graphic designer. And so I've moved from juggling fool to lighter leash salesman to glass blower to internationally known award-winning TV producer, and now graphic designer. I wonder how many more little titles I'll get to throw onto my name. I'm pretty excited about all this stuff, guys, and you can be too. So try and discover this release from the victim mentality, that we don't need order, we don't need this good-bad paradigm. The universe is full and fulfilling, and it will continue to give you everything you need as long as you can stay within a love vibration. Now it's getting harder and harder, of course, because they're destroying, like I say, the old growth, and they're setting up geomantic centers and orchestrating the very vibration of planet Earth through electromagnetic frequencies and chemtrails. And so it is going to get harder and harder, and you're going to have to turn inward for your bliss in order to be able to bring it out to others. So go into that little dream world that you've got. We've all got this thing we call the imagination, and dream at least yourself into a beautiful place, because right now there aren't many left. Come with me to the rainbow next year and experience a human experience, and we can shift this thing instead of fight this thing. And that's really what I want to leave you with, is this idea of a shift in paradigm instead of a struggle for paradigm. And next week we're going to discuss some of the concepts of magic. I'm going to talk to Isaac Bonowitz, who is the only guy to ever get, that's kind of hard to see, isn't it, degree in magic. And he's coming on the show next week. And his ideas of electromagnetic frequencies involved in the acts of magic will help substantiate these ideas. And we can even transcend these ideas of good, bad magic into just a form of energy that is around us at all times. So what can I say but play, play, play. I'm going to dig for a last-minute thought here. Realize that you have a soul group that is helping you as well. I constantly am checking in with mine. I'm always telling people, yeah, let me ask the voices in my head if I could do this or not. And but believe in abundance, believe in all of these things, and we can engage this flow and keep the flow going. It's so critical for right now. And we are going to be challenged, and there are going to, especially like right now, I don't know how many of you are going through this Mercury retrograde hysteria, but I've pretty much just put all the things off that I want to accomplish until next week, because it seems like I can't get anything done. So you got to be willing to be able to do that as well, just to be able to not be anxious. Let's try and calm the anxiety, use the restlessness for good. Start to get out, meet new people, just try it. Go and talk to a stranger. Say, hey, I had a feeling I need to speak with you, and see where it leads you. You'll never know. I mean, if I hadn't talked to a homeless guy on the bus, I wouldn't be on TV right now. You just never know. So with that, guys, I hope you're going to find a wonderful new world out there waiting for you in the next few days, because I know it's going to take a little time for your brains to wrap around this. And tune in next week as we discover more about real magic. Have a good night.